Sara Birns. Did you say Sara?
Sarah.
How'd you say it?
Maybe it's my accent. I just say Sarah.
How should I say it? Because it's spelled Sarah. We would say Sarah.
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 That's fine. You can call me that.
Can I call you Sarah?
Yeah. It's actually, since I've been in Europe, a lot of people say my name and they're like, Sarah? Wow, I've never heard of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Sarah.
It's quite a common name.
Sarah. Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to Radio Juxtapoz.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Welcome back to Radio Juxtapoz. My name's Doug Gillen, and today I'm joined by American surrealist portrait artist Sara Birns in conversation live from London. Californian artist Sara Birns takes the traditional painting techniques of the old masters and reworks them to create a truly unique style of portraiture. Dysmorphed faces, accentuated features blur the line between caricature and fine art. Disfigurement becomes a vehicle for us to see each other in a new light. The deep recesses of our personalities exposed in new ways in an exploration of identity and the self. Months in the making, I was more than excited to finally get a chance to sit down with Sara, but the unfolding worldwide context of our first meeting somewhat overshadowed the mood.
More than 700 Israelis are now feared dead after unprecedented attacks by Hamas militants. It represents the biggest loss of life in a single day in Israeli history.
In the last hour or so, the United Nations has said that it has been told by the Israeli military that more than 1 million Palestinians must leave the northern Gaza Strip within the next 24 hours.
It was impossible for this not to change everything. First and foremost, Radio Juxtapoz is an art podcast, and this remains a conversation about Sara's art. But it would have been a disservice not to make an attempt to address the circumstances in which we find ourselves. I fear that if you do happen to be listening to this years from the release, much of these sentiments will remain the same. We've made every effort to navigate this tricky topic in the best possible way, but we all know by saying one thing, it means you haven't said another, and so the thread starts to unravel. This isn't an interview with a journalist on the ground or a reporter from the front line. This is just an artist talking about their own experience, and that's all this should be taken as. More importantly, you'll hear me jump from Sara to Sara about 20 times in this interview. Probably not my finest journalistic moment. If you do enjoy this conversation, please let us know on the socials, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it right here on Radio Juxtapoz in conversation with Sara Birns. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to get into with you today. The majority of it's going to be about your artwork, funnily enough, your artwork and you. But the last couple of days, there's like a whole sort of cloud of context that's surrounding this, you know, the world at the moment. And I think because I've seen that you've been quite vocal about it, along with the rest of the world having a really, really strong opinions on this, I think it's important because I have a feeling at some point throughout this conversation it would have naturally come up. So I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. This is the Israel-Hamas war, I guess, is probably going to, even just calling it that is going to piss some people off.
Yeah, it's crazy.
First question to you is, how are you at the moment?
Well, I almost booked my flight home just back to Australia and cut my trip short just because the darkness is so intense for me right now, and just because it's just such an emotional thing for me to see happening, and then even me posting being Jewish is getting hate and stuff, and so that's just, I didn't expect that.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think as a Jewish person,
should we cut this out?
It's going to be controversial.
I know.
So I think that there's an element of that.
And I'm not even religious. I've always been kind of opposed to big conservative religions. I consider myself just spiritual. And
tell me a little bit about your background then. What you're, obviously the people will be listening and going, hang on, that's where's this accent? So you're from California, descendant of Polish Eastern immigrant Jews.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about that sort of cultural background that make up?
Yeah, so my grandparents on my dad's side survived the Holocaust, and once the war was over, they came to California, and then that's where they met, and because there was a refuge in San Jose, and so then my grandpa, he was just such a fighter and very smart, and did what he did to keep going forward, and built a really amazing business, just like used to just sell radios to farmers in like the farm. There's a lot of farmland in California, and then built from that.
The real American dream there.
Yeah, really, really. Yeah, American dream. Like that was why they chose America. Because after the war, like Jews went everywhere, and like Australia, my family who went to France, I have family who went to Israel, California, and yeah, there wasn't much family, so those were the 3 places.
I imagine then most Jews have connections, have a connection to Israel, whether they're they're born there, but most will have family there, right?
Yeah, most of us do, because there's not a lot of us, and so like, yeah, friends and family, like most Jews, if you talk to them, have had like traumas from the Holocaust. And Israel was the one place you can go where like the government is Jewish, so you will feel protected.
But it's more than a religion, right?
Yeah, it is. It's more than a religion. Like it's more of like a culture. It's in our DNA. Like if you do like 23andMe stuff, it's like, Ashkenazi Jew, 3%. It's just like, oh, okay, that's in there. Like, and it's like, if you have a way likelier chance of getting cancer if you're Ashkenazi Jewish. I'm like, great.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Do you know why?
I don't know. I feel like
you're gonna speculate.
Funny reason would be there's so few of us, and there's so much pressure to like marry a Jewish person, and then maybe like genetics. I don't know. That's a bad thing to say, but like,
was that a bad take?
That's a bad take. That's a bad take. We can keep it in though.
Tutorial on that.
Yeah, it's kind of my speculation.
Was that conservative upbringing? Was it
Reform? Super liberal. Right? Yeah, super liberal.
From California, so I would have expected it to be relatively.
She's an artist. Yeah, super liberal family. Like even my grandparents, we belong to like a Reform temple, and so like, yeah, not conservative, not kosher. We turn the lights on during Shabbat. Like, yeah, like we don't follow those rules, but we like have a like tradition, and it is like nice growing up in like having a spiritual upbringing in that kind of respect, even though my parents aren't really, they're pretty materialist, but like having a bit of that kind of ethical structure when you're a kid is nice.
I think that's what, and I have talked about this just sort of loosely in interviews before, but it's like that kind of our generation, my generation, I was
31.
Yeah, our generation. So it's like, I feel like increasingly there's less of it and less of a connection to religion, and I think what religion does offer is that kind of, without going into the all divine deities and the belief of the afterlife and everything, a really, really loose, invisible moral framework for you to live your life by. And I think there's similarities, particularly between the big four, way more similarities.
They're all the same, all religion.
Of what you do and what you don't do, right? And I think that's important.
Yeah, me too.
Is that what it kind of offered you guys then? A kind of, a sort of, maybe that would be more of a question for your parents. It would be like, was this like a useful way for you to say, here's like a framework of how you want to exist in society? These are the things, this is the person that you want to be, and this is the shit that you shouldn't do.
Yeah, like the 10 Commandments, like don't cheat on your wife, like don't steal, and but just like, and a big thing too, which I remember from going to like temple school and stuff, is like the questioning things, like questioning ethics, and like having those like discussions about like how to live a good life, how to live like being a good person, and like if there's something you don't agree with, like having talks about it, and stuff like that. Like I remember like having discussions about like love, like, or is it too young to fall in love when you're 10? And like I was like, yes, we're too young, we're just babies. And my friend was like, no, I'm in love right now with my boyfriend. And I don't know, just little things. It's good for everyone.
Where'd you sit on that now?
I don't know, I think maybe I was just like, I don't want no man, like I'm 10. Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a good way to be for a 10-year-old.
yeah.
We're talking about, you know, Jewish identity and everything like that. But I was wondering when I was doing this, because look, it's important that we fucking remember this is an art podcast. Has that part of your identity crept into your work in any respect? Is there Jewishness in your work?
There's Jewishness in my work. No, like I don't think so. It's not. Like, sorry guys, no. But I do think like everything about me is in my work, and like in the way I go about my life is, and I'm sure there's like things from being Jewish and like having like this small community of people that I'm like coming from. I'm sure there's like certain things, and I was thinking about that like today and stuff, like how has that shaped me in my work? Like I remember a very pivotal point when I decided to give everything to being an artist, and it was because I was working in jobs I hated. One of the jobs was threatening to sue me to get all the money that I had made from them back. It was a small freelance job. It was crazy job, and I was like, oh my god, and I just...
Is that a thing?
No, it was a threat, but she didn't. But
what was the job?
It was like UI UX design, like for just this small startup.
The sake of podcast land, what do those letters mean?
Oh, user experience, user interface design.
I knew what that meant. It was for everyone else.
Asking for a friend. Yeah. So I was doing like tech jobs, and then I like saved up because I just hated where I was at. So I saved up so I could take a year off, but it's still scary, like having no income. Quit my main job, but then would still accept UI UX jobs. They're just different tech jobs, and this particular one I just did not jive with the CEO of that startup. And then like towards the end, I just kind of was like, I'm out. Yeah. And then she was just like, tried not to pay me for the like last couple weeks. And then to think that I was gonna lose like the only part of the job I wanted.
The money.
Yeah, that was the only thing. And like I went through like just like so much discomfort like having those jobs. And so then it's like, okay, if the only thing they can take away from me is is money, which they can, like, like they take that away, but then I'm left with nothing.
Did you always have that desire to be an artist, or were you thinking that you would be able to kind of find fulfillment through other avenues? Did you think graphic design would be able to do that?
Oh yeah.
or was it like, okay, it has to be me, I have to be an independent artist, a creative in my own right, whatever medium that takes?
Yeah, I think like I always was an artist, like ever since a kid, and I think like that was a very strong calling very early on. Like I always loved drawing, like the love and excitement I had for the visual arts and making things with my hands has always been a huge part of just the love in my life and passion and growth and being creative, but with Jewish pragmatic parents, like no art school, like you're gonna get a normal education so I could get a good job.
Even though your mom's an artist?
Yeah, I know. It's like there's
hypocrisy there.
Yeah, both of them, they're like proud of me now, of course, but like
adjust.
Yeah.
You're lucky you're good.
Yeah, you're so lucky you're good at art. Yeah. So it's definitely like 1 in a million. It's better just be safe, get the skills to always be able to get a good job. And so that was a big pressure. Like, even though I wanted to go to art school, and I originally got into school because of that.
Okay, but that was
my major, yeah.
Wow. That must be part of that kind of like that really void in the soul fulfillment when you are out doing startup tech graphic design and design things like that. And you know that not even that that's what you want to do, but actually that you're good enough to be able to do that because you got into this.
Yeah.
Field, right?
And that's definitely like when I had those jobs, it was a good feeling of like, okay, if like anything like I can get, I'll always be able to like get a good job. But like I just hated it so much. It was like felt like a slave, like to someone's product that I don't care about, that isn't making the world a good place, and like I'm spending all of my energy on that. And so that was when like the safety for me of a good job went out the window, and I was just like, no, I need to take risks. I don't like, this isn't life. This isn't a life for me. This isn't a good life for me. I was just so like uncomfortable with the situation I had put myself in with that. And yeah, I wanted to be free.
What were those steps then? You kind of hinted towards it. You took a year out. And what did that year look like? What were you doing during this time to sort of get yourself into this place that now you're...
Yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah, what year was this?
I was 25 when I like quit everything, dumped my ex at the time. Like I moved back to Santa Cruz. And yeah, so I'm 31 now. I don't know. You do the math. I don't.
6 years.
Okay, yeah.
I got you.
There we go. 6 years, yeah.
Campaign.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm an artist, not a mathematician. Yeah, and so it was such a good year. Like, it was just like, I just broke everything that I knew down, and I like assessed like the like risks I think is worth it. And yeah, and so I like found a really cheap place in Santa Cruz. Like I had a tiny closet room, it barely fit my bed, and I loved it. It was like $600 a month. Like I had saved up like how I was spending compared to what I saved. I could probably live a year and a half without having to pick another like job up. Then I could just focus on, I didn't even know I wanted to pursue just being an artist. Like my plan was I want to just do what like I absolutely love to do, which is like at the time drawing. And then like once I run out of money, like I'll find a job that I don't have to dedicate any of my precious energy to. And I could just put that lovely energy that I want to the thing I want, prioritizing that. And then if the money part, I can, my idea was to just work at like a knitting store, like a yarn store. Like I was like, that seems like the chillest, like super, I love knitting.
Like worn out from a library.
Yeah.
Librarian knitting. Like calm. No one's got beef with knitters.
No. Yeah, I just help people with their project. Stock yarn. Like it's such a cute process of taking the fluff from sheep when they get too hot in the summer, and then we use it in the winter to keep ourselves warm. Just like this wholesome little cycle. And yeah, and then I'd do my painting or drawing afterwards.
But it wasn't meant to be for the knitting.
No, yeah, so that wasn't my plan. Yeah, that wasn't the outcome.
So what was your like drawing like at this point? You know, was it similar to what we see today?
No, I think it was very surreal. Yeah, which is similar. It's pretty similar, I guess. Yeah, like portraits. Yeah, there are consistencies.
Yeah, the exact same.
Super different, surreal portraits. Yeah. I think that was a consistent thing for me. Like I knew I loved that. I knew I loved that topic. But definitely I feel like I've grown as a person so much. Like to me, when I look at my paintings now and my drawings then, I just can see the amount of growth I've gone through. But
a consistent lineage? Yeah,
I think like after that year of just making the plunge, after that I met my mentor, and then just huge consistent, but the consistency feels like this for me.
We'll get into your mentor in a second, former guest on Radio Juxtapoz, phenomenal artist, because not everybody has access to Christian Rex Van Midden. So before this meeting, were you what resources were you using to try and get your technical side developed?
Yeah, like nothing. I was just like, I would watch some things, you know, on like Process, but it was pretty stripped down. Like I knew how to look at reference photos, and I knew like what would kind of get me there, like when I'm drawing, getting into the flow state. And like it was, yeah, and it still is, like I know how to get into that mindset, and when I'm working, of like getting to like a heightened level, or just like feeling of just like awe when you're working.
Tell me about this flow state then, because there's a really interesting concept for us non-artists, us mere mortals, and I want to know what that experience feels like for you. How could you describe that?
Yeah, let me take a bit to like focus on being in those moments. Very specifically, when I'm able to get into that state, which doesn't happen every day, but when I've felt it, that feeling come on, like I'm just like, whoa, holy shit, what was that? So specifically, like for me, like a lot of like connections will happen, and I'll start like seeing like I can't even put it into words. It's like, yeah, I'll see like something in my life that correlates so specifically to like a stroke I'm doing, or like a color pattern I'm like working on, and then like I'll like lose my body and just like feel like everything is connected like somehow, and it's all related to me like working through this portion of a piece, and the portion of the piece, the content that I'm putting all of the colors and values on is like has a reason that correlates with like all the other aspects in my life. That doesn't even make sense to me, but
it's tricky because you're talking about something really, really organic, something from within, and trying to verbalize that into words where you don't normally do that because it's a thing that you experience rather than something you discuss. It does make sense as much as it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure plenty of people will just be picturing, because if you like me, I was just picturing that kind of beautiful mind Russell Crowe moment, you know, where you just see the kind of like the all the symbols and numbers going by, you know, like the meme.
Yeah. Like, oh.
But were you like let your subconscious take over, or are you consciously trying to actively do things, or is it something else?
I can't control it. Yeah, but like it's definitely like subconscious, but I do think you can do a lot of things in your conscious life to set yourself up for a good healthy subconscious to guide you as well.
To be a good sort of supporting player. Yeah. So what what are kind of some of the things that you've experienced or actively tried to organize so that you're allowing the freedom for that space to kind of come through? First,
recognizing the materials on like this earth that you personally can like I guess like gravitate to. And so for me it's like drawing and painting, like visual art. Some people it's music, some people it's writing, some people poetry, singing, whatever it is, knitting.
Coming back to knitting every day.
I know. Yeah, so guys, I actually don't paint anymore. I'm full-time knitting.
Yeah. Top 5 favorite knitters.
Me.
Me, my mom, my grandma.
Yeah, my grandma, my aunt, my great aunt. Yeah, and so I think recognizing, because I think like we are like so physical and like action based, and so finding that thing that of like doing that because if you don't do anything, like just do something. If you don't do anything, you're not letting yourself get to different levels, I guess. And so, and trying out different things and like seeing what feels right and feels really good and what makes you really excited and what feels bigger than yourself. And so, but I do think that you need to have a thing you're doing. For me, this long meditative process of making a painting, it's such like this repetition, like slow, but it's like I'm like doing this long like thing, but through all of that hard work, you can achieve like some pretty cool things.
How long is the process for you then on something like that? I mean, oils are just slow, right?
Yeah, super slow, and especially because they take so long to dry, and so I'll work on something and then I have to let it dry for a few days before I can come back to it. And I'll work on multiple paintings at the same time, just so like I always have something that's dry for me to work on. Yeah, I'll take 4 months to finish like a good amount of work, maybe like 7 paintings. Wow. I think, yeah, I'm getting faster, but
you can only go as fast as the oils will let you.
Yeah.
Are you always working then from, and we'll get back to this technical development, especially with oils, are you working from a sketch and saying this is what I'm making, or how much of it with this, slow drying process and the idea that something could take you, days, weeks, months to create, how much freedom does that give you to be able to change where you're going? Do you still have that freedom with oils?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I plan everything before I start the painting. And I used to do sketches, but I felt like it wasn't as necessary. And then once I'd finished the sketch, I'd want to do a different piece. There's areas where I have freedom and areas where I don't. So like the structure of the whole piece is something I have to plan. And then on that stage of it, so like the underpainting, I'll have freedom to mess with that. But once that's set, it's set. And if I want to change something, I can't. Like, that's it. I'm not going to be like, oh, actually, I want different expression. Unless I want to cover it up, but then you lose like the glow. You lose a lot of things that I need to make the paintings like technically amazing. And so, yeah, but there's certain things like I'll save for later. A lot of the details I don't figure out until last. So like, do I want pores? Do I want veins here, there? Like, nah, maybe not for this one, or maybe just right here. Colors, I'll try and figure out my colors first, but a lot of the time I'll wait.
Allow yourself just enough room to be able to maneuver those.
Yeah, so I guess it is, yeah, and I try not to be I used to be too like, since you almost have to plan where the freedom will be. And then I'm like, what if I don't know? But now it's just like, well, we'll see. Like, I'm going to put this shadow here. And if it's in the wrong spot, I'll just move the thing the object, because that's where I can move something. Figuring it, like being okay where I allow myself freedom. Like, I chose it, I got to stick with it. Yeah, that's where I will like make on the spot decisions.
First of all, how did the relationship with your mentor come together, and how did that impact your process and your practice overall?
Christian Rex Van Menen, incredible oil painter, old master technique, just amazing process, amazing person, amazing artist, great mentor.
Great, that was a good pitch. Yeah. Okay, so how did he impact you, and what was that kind of how did that relationship come together, and what how did it change the trajectory?
Yeah, Santa Cruz, it's a small town, and my mom at the time had a studio right next to him. And so that's how I heard of him, because she was like, this really, really good artist next.
So you weren't aware before?
No, I didn't know anything about the art world, at all. I didn't know, galleries, like it just was such an off limits or like unrealistic thing for
And this is after you've quit your job and when you're going, so you've quit your job, you've decided you're going to be an artist, but you're still not really interested in the art world.
No.
Love that.
Just like, I just want to draw, like, and I was just like, I just need to trust something good will happen.
So you guys are studio buddies, you've started, and what were some of the kind of key pieces of advice? How did that mentorship start to look for you?
The first time meeting him, I think my mom messaged him, was like, hey, my daughter, she's like like an artist as well, and she would love to see your studio, and so like I walk in and I'm just like, what the fuck, like, oh my god, like he does this every day, like just seeing the slow process. I've always seen old master paintings like in museums and stuff, but to see someone doing it.
Were you aware of old masters and that whole
Not
world
in
at this
modern
point?
day. I was aware of them, but only as like a untouchable thing that people did a really long time ago. So the idea of like someone can be doing this and now, like, so, and then not only that, like understanding light to morph it into something that looks so real, but it's not. So it's like all those old masters, but then to twist it into something that doesn't exist, like to understand light, our visual world so well, like create a whole new world that looks so real. Yeah, and so it started off with babysitting his kids so I can just learn some painting. Like, how do I get started on just like figuring out this whole idea of light?
And what were you doing then to figure out this whole world of light? How did that, sort of like look in a really, sort of tangible way?
It starts off first with like, well, I remember I brought like drawings with me. And so, and just like the first things he was critiquing were just like things about the light.
Do you thought about light at all when you were doing your drawings?
Not in the sense like,
was there a sun?
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Drawings, was there a sun anywhere? Where would it be?
Yeah, no. So I wouldn't think of light as like a way for me. I would just look at the pictures and the light. And I always knew, like, I remember drawing as a kid and knowing that when I look at something, I'm only looking at values. I'm not looking at a nose. I'm looking at where the shadow and the lights are, and it's not a nose, it's just values. And so like breaking things down in my head like that, it was something that I thought was like the coolest thing ever. And then I would just, when I draw, I would just think of that, and then I can create something that looks very real. And they were surreal, but I just like tweak things. But to kind of take an image and then apply my own knowledge of light, like then he's the one who gave me that idea of like, okay, now I can think about where is the sun when I'm painting this? Before it was just looking at the image and breaking down the image. Mm-hmm. Now it's about breaking down that image, but also of like improving the image even further, of like thinking about that sun like right now in the sky, shining on the face in my painting, and then improving it, changing it from that idea.
I'm just kind of picturing you walking into the studio, seeing fucking of all people, Rex.
I know, I didn't even know who he was.
Just so fucking good. Suddenly seeing the world of the old masters being opened up to you in a different way. Was there any of those paintings or artists that particularly stood out for you? And do you remember just like looking at a Rubens or a Rembrandt and then suddenly thinking like, fuck, how did they do this? Or like, was there a sort of particular moment for you?
All of those artists were, all of a sudden I'd be able to break down what they're doing a lot easier, and just that would blow my mind. And like seeing, like identifying processes that I'm familiar with now. Yeah, and a few people like Frederick Solacroix. I'm saying his name wrong, but I'm not gonna correct you on it. I'm not the guy for that. Solacroix, I don't know. Yeah. French guy. Not being like, how did he do that? And then breaking it down and trying it my way, like how would I apply my skills to it, and like building upon the skills I know, and then adding new, trying things, experimenting to see if I can achieve it like in this way. And then even looking back at the painting I did and the painting he did, and be like, oh, actually, like I like how I did it better. My last show in Australia, it was like the backgrounds were all inspired by him. Frederick Nailed
it.
Nailed it. Yeah, just because I love that like silk wallpaper, and like yeah, definitely they always inspire me.
How much of your work now then follows traditional old master techniques, and how much of it is kind of more experimental and has broken away from that? And can you maybe describe which components of that process would be traditional and which ones would be more your sort of take on things?
Yeah, I think the technical process is very, very traditional, but it's like me interpreting it in my way. And so they've done like the saying of like, so-and-so walked so that so-and-so can run. It's like, I believe that with everything we're doing as humans, like you study the people who you think are the best, and then you can figure out how they did things, and then you can build on that. It's crazy. And so I think those techniques and stuff, like it's rooted in that. And then where I see like my Sara Birns coming through is like in instances of like, oh, I think I did that, I like the way I did that better. And then also the biggest thing is the concepts, like my concepts and like my visions, my ideas. Those are so me, and like not like certain aspects I take from them, like the way they will put like light in the background on a shadow side, and like this and that. But like I morph the faces. I try and like bring out specific emotions, multiple emotions in one face, and like I like create like I think I was saying earlier, like this wholesome like feeling, but in a very weird, also dark way. Me doing those concepts, like having such a more unique vision of.
What role then does the disfigurement play for you?
So I feel like, I think as an artist, like you're creating something so that people will see things differently. For me, like morphing things a bit, you can recognize a person in a face and emotions, but for me, I feel like it's deep. It's like it's deeper when I morph them. This life is like, I don't think it's linear. I think it's just like this mash of experiences, and we're caught in this like huge, like changing every day. Like what I did yesterday is gonna change that outcome of my life. Like every day, every moment is like you're constantly changing. Things happen to you, you do something, putting all this change and movement and like emotion, like complex emotions into like the like window of ourselves, which I feel like is like our face is the window of our soul, like expressing how we're feeling.
Do you ever, and this is maybe loaded, do you ever feel like you're playing the role of God when you're doing that?
Of course.
Genuinely, because you're taking this human form, this kind of like this thing, this really universally familiar thing, and you're fucking with it so much, kind of like in a, there's an element in there of kind of Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein in his lab kind of doing this point, taking on the role of God. And I wonder if you ever do get that sort of sense as you're doing this? That
feeling, well, first like creation, like creating, that's a godly. You're taking things that we have and like ideas that we have, putting it through your processes and of like how you view things, and then creating something new from that. And in the beginning too, like that was what like really hooked me, was that like the first paintings I did of really like my morphing of the face was taking two people that I knew and putting their faces together to create a whole new person with emotions from two people I know until one. And so I did feel like I was creating a person, and then people would react to that.
How would they react? What were the reactions, especially in those sort of earlier stages where maybe they weren't as familiar with your work? As I assume all your friends are really, they know your work and they know that you're going to fuck them up if you do it in a loving and a caring way, I assume. But in those early stages, what were those reactions like?
Yeah, well, I definitely feel like the people who I would paint were close to me, like friends, family and stuff. And so, yeah, there's the output of like this weird, crazy painting, but it was also like me. And they knew me. And they knew I was a freak. But they like saw my growth. Yeah, and just like watching like this talent I have and putting it into this really bizarre thing that they're in, and like seeing themselves in like a weird like elements of themselves and this something else. Yeah, it was all support, definitely.
When you are, for lack of a better phrase, fucking up someone close to you, is there a sort of a symbolism between how you start to morph them and disfigure them? Like, are you thinking, or do you see it more like a kind of Trafalgar Square caricature drawing where it's like, hey, that guy's got big ears, let's give him really big ears? Is there something more to it than that, or is it just purely like a kind of like, okay, cool, this is an aesthetic choice?
No, I think it is deeper because I mainly am looking at emotions and that's in feelings and the feelings we get from the like an expression or impression that they're making. How
do you start to build that environment beyond the portrait?
I think like it'll begin when I want to put a surrounding behind my figures. Yeah, I'll think about like a theme that I'm excited about, and so like for the current body of work, it will stem in just me being like, I love this, like Rossetti and like the romanticizing nature and stuff like that. And so I'll begin and like what, and it because it touches me really deeply, and I think a lot of the time I don't know why yet, and I like that. Like if like I won't try to find a reason why before I start working, but I'll trust that there's a reason that I feel so deeply about this, adding water, adding a pond, like there's a bit of a water theme in my next pieces, and like I don't really know why, but then and even to the last, like even to the details, I'll like almost like a little like knowing of like painting an eye, and it's like, no, flip it upside down. It's like, oh no, this is wrong, you gotta flip it upside down. I'm like, why? Like, I don't know. But I'll do it, and then I'll do it when I'm doing it. It's like, no, this is right, like I'm supposed to be doing this. And then like all months later we'll realize like a reason behind it for me. Spoiler alert for the next pieces, it's like this idea, and like with water and like the like eyes being flipped is like this idea of like us like breaking down and dissolving and then coming back together and then like dissolving. And I didn't realize that until afterwards, but the images of nature, of water, of like things being flipped upside down is like really like that's why.
Your work is really informed and influenced by your world.
Yeah, I think like creating my world, and as an artist it's like we're pretty lonely people because like we're just work alone all day, like every day, and like most of the time I work on the weekends, and like I'll have to like really be strict about taking a day off and stuff, and like I just want to be doing that work like when I'm if I'm leaving my studio or the house, it's almost like, is this worth being away from all my hobbies like right now? Like, I don't know, you just get like antsy. And I think a lot of artists struggle with that.
You don't have a 401, you don't have a safety net. You're not sitting there with like, it's okay, I've got my pension, I'm good. I'm going to clock in at 9 on Monday and then I'm done. You're like, if I'm not working, this is me. And you talk about your personal growth. It's like, that's why you get that feeling when you're not doing it, right?
Yeah, like I don't have healthcare. It's like I do it because of like, that's where I feel so free and explorative, and like I'm the one making decisions about how I want to perceive the world and what I want to put into it and how I want to structure my day. I don't want to wake up early. I don't want to have someone tell me what time to be somewhere. Like, that's huge.
Now that you are like in a pretty different place to where you would have been 6 years ago, have you started to become a bit more, to tighten up that practice a little bit, to tighten up that routine and to say, hey, I have to be disciplined here? Or are you just naturally quite a disciplined person, or do you have to find yourself like, okay, cool, I need to rein this in?
No, I think I've always been very disciplined with like my work and drive. And like even before painting, like I feel like I've always had like this like probably unhealthy obsession of just like, I gotta keep building. I would jump from job to job, like always jumping like higher and higher. And like if I don't like a situation I'm in, even for a little bit, I get this huge anxiety of like, I gotta get out of this situation, this is so bad for me, like I gotta like figure something out, and like this like and so that I think that adds to my discipline of like, whereas when I'm like working and painting, it's like, oh, calm.
As this is now, your bread and butter, your job, are you able to keep it as quite a meditative place without the pressures of it being like, okay, cool, this is the job, I need to do this show, I need to get this work done? Are you still able to keep it as a place that is a sort of, a mentally safe space?
Yeah, I think so. Like that is a great question, because there are like high pressure times of like, oh my God, I need to finish this, like blah, blah, like I only have this amount of time. But like, I would be doing that anyways. Like I would, yeah. I love being worried. And so it's not really like I have that. And so then I will like, when it gets too much and I'm like, where it seeps into that like sacred space of creating, then it's time to like sit down and make a priority list on how to like execute everything on time. And then so I have little tricks of like, if it starts getting in the way of like my time creating, then I'll like sit down, like write every day out what needs to be done when, like, okay, that means like all of the grisailles need to be done in 2 weeks, and then I'm able to go back the next day and then sink into the flow and stuff like that. Like I think even when I'm stressed out, like I'm good at like getting into that pocket of time of like, oh yeah.
And you're based out of, because I mean we're talking quite largely about your California experience, but you're based in Australia at the moment. Is that kind of a similar environment? I mean, surfing is the word that jumps out, but what's the reality of that? Where in Australia are you?
Yeah, so right now I live in Sydney, Australia. And I moved there for love. Like my partner, he lives there, and
it's a fucking big move.
It's a little far from California. It's like exactly the opposite side of the world from California.
I didn't go out with a girl because she lived in Zone 3 in London. I was like, nah, this isn't gonna work. It's too much for me. I'm like, so to move to Australia feels like
give it a try. And also like we were separated during COVID, so it's like 20 months of FaceTime.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why most people are like, okay, but for us it wasn't like, we just did it. Yeah, and I think it was like ready to have a change because like my hometown is Santa Cruz and I have never lived in a city as an artist. And and I was kind of ready for like a new place, and Australia is too far.
Categorically, it is too far. There's not like a question. There's not an opening.
Is too far from everything. So I was worried about that, but I was like, well, I'm just gonna go and like see. And then I've been there for a year, and we're gonna move to Europe now.
Okay. Oh, we're in Europe.
Paris or England or London.
Is that what we're doing here? We're in. By the way,
yeah,
we're in London.
London. Yeah.
This is maybe loaded. Which state do you prefer to make art in, or how does each state affect the art that you're making, whether you're in love and living together in a harmonious place or in the pits of depression and alone?
Yeah, and alone in California. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, like instinctively when you started asking that question, immediately I was like, I feel like I get into such my own world. It doesn't really affect anything. I mean, it does affect my mood, and which I'm sure affects my work. But I think like my concepts and stuff, and I feel like I am in such like my own world bubble. My location has, I noticed, I thought it would, but it really didn't make a huge impact on the work I'm doing.
Do you think in terms of shows, do you think, is that how you start to build it? Do you think, okay, cool, I'm going to start with that idea of what that show, that concept might be, and then start building from there? Or how does that look for you? Yeah,
actually, that's true. I'll have a show or like start creating a body of work that I want shown together. And then I will like remember things that like really stuck out to me that year. Like I'm collecting concepts as I'm finishing up my last show for the next show. And so so that I think it's just like I'm in already this like crazy cycle, and so of like thinking about what I'm gonna be working on next year while I'm working on the pieces now, and like everything is like not linear at all for me.
Do you try to keep those things separate? Like if you're working on this concept, you don't want it to feed into this work too much, or
it's okay. I think they do all overlap. Like I feel like I have a consistent concept, which is like kind of growing my portrait morphing and like emotion morphing and stuff like that, and building on that, but then like adding concepts to that on what I'm thinking about that year.
Did it feel weird? You know, we just really briefly mentioned, and I was thinking about how actually I think I first started seeing your work round about or maybe before lockdown, and I know that you featured in the Art in Uncertain Times on Juxtapoz, and I was wondering, because that was like a time where your trajectory started going through the roof, and I was wondering if it was weird having, you had the show at Richard Heller, and these are like and your first international show in Rome around that time, I think it was. And I was wondering if it felt weird kind of having, quote unquote, blowing up as everyone else is no longer allowed to go out.
I think it would have felt weird regardless anyways, because I have, like, it's all new to me, and like the art world is, and like me starting to get recognized a lot. I think it would have felt weird even if people were staying inside or going out and like life is normal. Yeah, and so for me, and also with my practice, it's so isolating anyway. So I was like, there's like a meme somewhere where it was just like, when you realize your daily routine is called like quarantine. And I was like, yeah, my life really didn't change. Like,
so what does the future look like for you then? Obviously, can't predict it, but what do you have confirmed coming up?
Yeah, so I have a show coming up in Milan with Casino Projects, and I'm excited for that. That'll be November or December. We haven't chosen a date yet. And then I'll be having a show in London in March. Matt Carey Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, so this will be his first independent show.
Yeah, wow, okay, cool. Yeah. Where's that space?
We don't know yet. I think he said he confirmed it, but we don't know. The artists don't know yet.
We got a scoop right now. Exclusive. So we're going to be seeing a little bit more of you around London then? Yeah, and I think we might, Matt and I, we might do a little solo as well in June. So we were talking about that too, which is cool. Yeah, more me in London. Cool. Yeah. Sara. I still don't know. You say Sarah. I
say Sarah. Yeah, I say Sarah. Yeah, but I don't know if that's the accent thing.
Thank you so much. That was Sara Birns in conversation here on Radio Juxtapoz. If you did enjoy that, make sure you give us a follow so you can keep in touch with all the future episodes. And if you haven't already, why not dig into some of the past ones? We'll be back with you real soon. Till then, take care of yourselves and each other.